Hey guys, got a bunch of RPG horror stories for you today. The first one up is going to be about a DM that utterly ruins a really good plot hook. So many years ago, I was invited to an already established table playing D&D 3.5. The party was a group of adventurers who all had a bone to pick with the BBEG, a very traditional evil overlord. The group was in need of stealthing abilities, and Rogue was my favorite class, so I heartily agreed to join. The DM and I met up beforehand to create my character and came away with a former thief trying to get onto the path of the straight and narrow for the sake of her older brother. The older brother, an NPC, was the most important person in the world to her. He had ties to organized crime and a bad gambling and drinking problem. A combination of these issues landed him in prison, and with a small price on his head from the local crime guild. The captain of the guard promised to protect the brother from being murdered in jail if my character joined up with the adventuring party, and thus we were off. The party spent 3 or 4 sessions helping a powerful wizard with tasks and quests to thwart the BBG and his minions. And let the record show that said wizard was the DM's PC from a previous unfinished campaign, leveled up to 20, and our entire campaign was based around the wizard's incomplete arc. I wouldn't learn any of this though until after I had left the game. The real meat of the story came from when the party received word from the guard captain that the BBG had attacked the prison back in the hometown, kidnapping most of the prisoners and taking them back to his keep to become slaves. While my character was devastated to learn her brother had been taken captive, as a player, I was thrilled. The DM had brilliantly weaved my character deeper into the story, giving her a motivation to want to have the BBEG dead and gone, and even stronger ties to the party. Now, there had been some unfun bumps in the road, but I left that session excited about next week. The other players and I talked in the group thread about our plans to infiltrate the keep, and what we would need, if it was even possible at this level, and imagining the next arc of the campaign. The DM kept cryptically hinting that something was coming in the next session that we wouldn't possibly expect. And he wasn't wrong. At the start of the next session, the DM's wizard came to the party, looking bloodied and bruised, and told us that when he had learned of the attack on the prison, he fought the BBEG. Both of them were wounded, but the wizard had managed to get all the imprisoned people out. We were to come with him, right now, to his tower, where we would find my brother amongst all the other rescued people. Not only that, but the wizard had placed an enchantment on my brother that zapped him with low-level psychic damage anytime he tried to drink or gamble. But wait, there's more. The wizard wasn't finished yet. He also paid off all of my brother's debts, including those owed to the crime guild, who he threatened to stay far, far away from my brother. My disappointment was palpable. Obviously, my character was happy. Her brother was safe, and he was now, undeniably, better off now than he was before. But as a player, I couldn't help wonder but what the heck I was supposed to do now. My character's entire arc had been solved in between sessions, by an NPC. Looking back now, I think the DM's logic was that my character would feel deeply indebted to the wizard and thus be motivated to help him. Not out of obligation to the guard captain, or the brother, but because surely she knew how cool and strong and awesome the wizard was. This was supported by the goal of the next several sessions, which boiled down to, "Fetch the wizard something. He needs to defeat the BBEG." I dipped out pretty quickly after that, and the game ultimately paused indefinitely. I'm still friends with the other players who invited me in, and I'll occasionally see them and the DM at a small con we all go to. All friendly and whatnot, but I've never played another game with them after that. Alright, so there's one thing taking away player agency and a good plot hook, and then making everything about basically yourself. What a letdown. You go from a really good plot hook of helping not just your brother but a whole bunch of other people, to just the DM basically going, "And now you shall help me! I mean, my character!" But onto the next story, which is about a paladin and a tiefling. So, this story happened during one of my many D&D campaigns I have joined over the years. The cast of people in this are the DM, who is a D&D vet and had a good campaign story and world. Myself, being a bland human fighter. The druid, who was a small gnome, and always talked like he was high on shrooms. Then you had the paladin, who was a high mighty symbol of justice who would smite all evil, and later a party member. You also had the wizard, who was nice, smart, and not really involved too much in the story. And then the cleric, who was a standard red tiefling cleric of peace and harmony, also a new player added later in the campaign. The story starts when we were heading into a town to rest. The paladin wanted to visit the town church to ask for shelter and food.
You went and see that it's a small place that also works as a local orphanage, as you see a tiefling in robes, holding a book and...
I draw my sword. State your reason for being here, demon, or get sent back to hell where you belong.
Please put away your weapons. This is a place of worship, not violence.
Oh my god, are you playing a pacifist cleric? They suck.
Paladin. It's the cleric's choice on what her domain is.
She should have gone with life to be a better healer at least.
After a while, the cleric joined the party with the paladin always making rolls at random to, quote,
see through her devilish lies.
With the DM and the cleric always telling him to stop and that there was nothing evil about her. We got a simple goblin ambush with the cleric giving us support with healing and protection spells while staying a bit away from combat. In the end, the paladin got hit hard as the cleric approached him.
You look hurt. Let me help. Get away from me, you demonic heathen. Your seduction won't work on a holy warrior of God.
She's just trying to help us.
Yeah, just get over your grudge with her. I demand that you heal me instead, druid.
I only went for combat spells.
I'll wait for a long rest then.
You're at half health. Are you sure you can last that long?
The paladin said nothing as the DM went on with his story. At night, the cleric decided to take night watch with the wizard, as the paladin decided to not long rest, as he started to follow the cleric around until she sat down and began a prayer.
While she's distracted, I draw my sword and impale her with it.
What?
I said no PvP in session 0. And now you're breaking the rules.
It's not PvP if she doesn't fight back.
The cleric, at this point, didn't speak, and her mic was voiceless with soft cries coming out. The paladin rolled, despite the DM saying that he couldn't, and got max damage as he proclaimed,
Now die, you unholy spawn of evil.
As your sword impales her, a bright light shines from your sword as the smite is sent back to you, and your flesh starts to melt off. Your head shrinks, and you explode into a pile of guts and blood as your holy god quickly resurrects the cleric, as you had broken your sworn oath to your god for killing an innocent person.
Following this, the paladin was quickly kicked from the game by the DM as the cleric stopped crying for a bit, as the rest of us apologized to her, with the DM saying that she could leave if she wanted to, but she stayed in because she still wanted to try to play. Would you look at that? An RPG horror story where the DM actually did a thing. But that's it for that one. The next one up is about Gen Con. So, this happened at Gen Con. I wanted to play a demo game of the new Avatar: The Last Airbender RPG. I'm a huge Avatar fan, and I bought the bundle set on impulse just because I thought it looked so nice. If nothing else, I thought, I could use it as source material and convert it over to the system that I actually play, which is Hero 5th Edition. But I did want to try their system and see what it played like. The publisher was running demo games every 30 minutes. The game attracted a lot of attention and interest, and with my other scheduled events, my time was limited. I got to the room where the game was being sold and demoed, and waited in line for about 20 minutes before the staff brought in a small group to take a seat at the tables where the current demo was wrapping up. So far, so good. The demos were all in groups of 5 players, with the 6th one being the GM or storyteller. The staff asked for a single player to sit at a table with 4 other players who were together. A girl in her late teens, or early 20s, a boy about the same age, and 2 brothers. One who looked about 15 or 16, and the other one being probably about 7 or 8. We were directed to a table that had just emptied, and I took a middle seat because I wanted to be able to hear everyone. No sooner than I had sat down, a woman asked me if I would mind changing seats. The 2 brothers were trying to figure out where to sit, and the girl and the boy had already taken 2 seats next to each other. That would put one brother at the end of the other side of the table, and the other brother to my left with the GM on my right. I quickly realized that the woman was the mother of the 2 boys. My mouth opened in surprise, and the woman quickly interjected that she wanted her sons to sit together so that the older boy could help his brother if he needed it. This seemed rather ridiculous to me for a 30-minute demo game. I doubted that it would get that complicated. It didn't. But before I could even answer, the older boy said,
It's fine. He will be fine. They don't need to move.
The mother started to argue and say things like,
Well, he might need help, so you should sit next to your brother.
And then started on the little boy about,
Well, don't you want to sit next to your brother?
Both of the boys were clearly irritated, with the little boy looking embarrassed being put on the spot, and the older boy clearly not wanting to spend his gaming time babysitting his brother. I would have been happy to have moved for either of the boys if they had wanted it, but they didn't. But I finally said to the mother, It'll be fine. I will help him if he needs help. And the tone I used clearly conveyed, this is the end of it. The GM realized that the boys, the other 2 players, and I were starting to get irritated by the delay. We had 30 minutes to play, and we had wasted about 5 of it fussing over who sat where. So the GM said,
Hey, we need to get started.
And began explaining how the die rolls worked, and how to interpret the character sheet. We got through the session in good time, mostly because between the young couple, the older boy, and I, we had a pretty good plan with good execution on how to defeat the villain. But Helicopter Mom didn't quit though. A few minutes into the game, she moved behind the younger boy saying,
Well, don't you want to sit on my lap?
And made the poor kid sit on his mother's lap during the session. The poor kid didn't really get to do much of anything. I felt bad for both of the boys. It was very clear that the older boy was being forced to sacrifice any good time that could be had looking after his brother, and not being allowed to do anything on his own while the little boy was so tightly roped in that he couldn't enjoy any independence either. But I was also irritated that this woman's self-centered paranoia was interfering on my good time as well. Gen Con is a family-friendly event. Granted, you always need to exercise some caution in a strange town, but Jesus, Helicopter Mom, let your kids live a little. She should have just stood off to the side and let the boys do their own thing. They were actually well behaved, the both of them. Yes, and I'm sure this mother will never be able to actually figure out why the 2 boys will probably, later on in life, either not be overly fond of her and not really, calling her very often for holidays or what have you, or just not being particularly fond of her in a general sense. It also wouldn't surprise me if this would ruin their general perception of TTRPGs. But that's it for that one. The next one up is about a person attempting to ban someone from a local game store. So, here's a strange thing. I got a Discord message from the owner of our LGS. The owner wanted to talk to me about something serious, and he wanted me to either go to voice chat or to call the store. So I called. He let me know that there was a complaint about me using homophobic and transphobic slurs at my table the Thursday before last. He was sure that this didn't sound like anything that I would do, and assured me that he just wanted to get everyone's side before responding to the complaint. I asked if they were sure it was me, and he said that yes, they described me down to the Game Master t-shirts that I had made for myself using my cry cut. I asked Dan if he had been in the store recently, which he wasn't because he was at the other store 2 towns over. I reminded him about the post that I had made on the store's Discord server, saying that due to a medical emergency in my family, my game that I was running at the store was on hold until further notice. Dan looked back at the history and saw the message. So he asked, "So you haven't been in the store on game nights in a while?" I replied that with the emergency now being over, the game was not running, but we were planning to start again this coming Thursday, since things have finally calmed down. He said, "I don't know then. If it wasn't you, it must have been someone else, someone just being stupid and trying to get you kicked. You haven't pissed off anyone lately, have you?" I said that if I had, I was unaware of it. And when Thursday came along and I ran the session, it went well as it usually did. I wish I could say that I saw someone giving me the side eye, or someone with a look of surprise that I hadn't been banned from the store, or any of the other dozens of ways that someone might have given themselves away, but that didn't happen, so I still don't know who tried to get me banned from the store. Well, quite simply, this is probably the same type of crappy person that thinks that swatting people is a completely fine thing to do. What an utter loser. I wouldn't suggest that you get a sense of security, though, because if he's already willing to try to screw with you once, there very well might be follow-up attempts. So yeah, be careful there, OP. That's it for that one, though. Next one up is a rather short one about Baldur's Gate 3. I wanted to write this because I feel like for once you would all like to hear a story where nobody was a bad guy, and everyone had a good time. But there still was a disruption. So, of the 6 people in my Wednesday game, 5 of us had been playing Baldur's Gate 3 since it was released, basically non-stop. The resulting effect was 4 of the people, one of the players was moving on Wednesday, waddling into the game, dragging themselves away from it by force, all with the coronation and mental faculties of drunken toddlers with amnesia. Myself, the DM, included. For the life of us, we couldn't remember what had happened the last game, and between all 5 of us, it took us about half an hour to scrounge up enough details to play, and probably another 20 minutes to stop talking about Baldur's Gate 3. It took all of our mental energy to not just talk about the game the entire time.
Notes, you fool! Notes! Take notes! Memory is fleeting, ephemeral, fickle!
Wait, what was I saying? Oh crap, where are my notes?
Oh no, why didn't I write it down?
Alright guys, that's all I got for you today. So, as always, have a good one.